God bless everybody. Today is January 16th, 2024. This is a market update. I've been talking about this event that's going to happen in the future, and it is starting to occur now. I did a video about 11 days ago on this, and in that video I indicated how the 10-year bond would meld up over the 2-year bond, and this would normalize the curve, which is bad. Okay, that is really bad. Anytime we get a situation where we get a normalization of a curve, especially at the rate that we're having it happen now, means you're going into a deep recession or probably a Great Depression. And due to the amount of liquidity of the money that they've pumped into the system and the amount of credit and debt that we've actually have on the books and off the books, this is going to be the worst nightmare you've ever seen. So what happened in the last 11 days? We saw the Fed come out and basically indicated that they had soft pillows and beautiful landings going on out here, and that they were going to basically just hold rates. They probably weren't going to have to raise them, and they signaled such a optimistic statue of what they wanted to do that the markets took it that they were going to start cutting rates around March of this year, and that they were going to get up to 150 basis point cuts, or approximately 6 cuts by the end of the year, which is just ludicrous. And I said that in the last video. It's ludicrous that they think that they can do that when they have a core inflation rate of around 4%. And until that moves down to 2%, which is what they want to get at, they can't reduce these rates. They're going to have to continue to have them for longer at this rate, or if we see an inflationary period move up, where you're watching that happen now, where fuels are moving up, so movement of shipping containers and things are being basically weighed down in the Red Sea, and that's going to hyperinflate a lot of these products and different things like that. As you get into this scenario, you're going to watch these bonds react to everything. So my concern in that video 11 days ago was that you would see the 10-year bond meld up over the 2-year bond, even though the 2-year bond was still moving up, which is what we're seeing right now. And that gap has reduced almost by half. It was at like 36 points, and I'll show you that on the chart when we get to the inversion chart. Now you're at like 18, and it is going to go to 0. And then when the 10-year bond melts up over the 2, that's when catastrophe starts to hit, and they will then have to react to the market, because the inversion's been in place for almost 16 months. So once the markets realized they couldn't or aren't going to get their 6 cuts, they started to adversely react to that information. And what do we watch? We watched just in the last day the 2-year melt up by almost 9 points. You've watched the 10-year melt up almost 11 points. So that's what I mean. The 10-year is moving up quicker than the 2-year, and once this starts to accelerate, we don't know where the long end of the curve is going to end up, but the 2-year is probably going to end up between 5 and 6%, just based on everything and how the movement and trajectory is going up. Now that could change, because this is a long-term play. Now this could happen quickly because this is melding up so fast. So you've had 11, and we just in the last week or so, this has melded up quite a bit. We were down around 3.85%, 3.7, 9%. Now you're at almost 4.1%. This is changing quickly as this is starting to meld up. And when it does invert, what will happen is your 2-year will be your normalized rate, where it was 2%. At least that's what the Fed was trying to get you to understand. So if you end up with, let's say, a 5% 2-year or a 6% 2-year, that is your normalized rate. Okay, it's not 2% anymore. It's twice or 2.5 times what it was when we inverted to begin with. And then the 10-year melts up above it. And so that is what everybody uses for their determination of their rate on your loans. So the banks borrow at the 2-year rate, which at this point is 4.222. Okay. Well, the 10-year is at 4.056. And that's why the inversion is starting to pancake and uninvert. Well, if the 2-year would melt up to, let's say, a 5, and the 10-year would melt up to, let's say, a 7 or an 8, the bank is going to charge at the 10-year rate and add additional interest on, because they have to make money. So your 7 or 8% will end up being 9, 10, 11, or 12% or higher, because the banks have to make money. And because your 2-year bond now is what the Fed follows, and I've been talking about this forever, the Fed follows the 2-year bond. So what the Fed's way behind the ball, because the 2-year bond's at 4.22 and they're at 5.5, they're not doing their job properly. So they've already reduced these rates. So they will lose this battle when it uninverts. Okay, you will immediately start to go into a recession. You're already going to watch massive job layoffs and different things like that. And what will happen is this will melt up to a point where most people will default on their cars and their loans and their homes and all these different things, because they can't redo their loans when they were at a 3 or 5%, and now they're at a 10 or 12 or 14% or whatever the bank wants to charge this month for those rates, because the bonds have melted up so much. And so what will happen is you will see this inversion uninvert. And you're starting to see at the tip here, this is spiking right now, and it's moving up quickly. You're having a real problem here, that this could melt up to the point where it's unsustainable for most people, and their loans and things that they have on their cars and homes and credit cards, different things like that, are being affected. If this thing uninverts and goes to normalization, which means this will move back over this black line and normalize to 0 or higher, because you're not in negative zone, which we've been in negative zone for a long time here, you will see these rates go way up, and that will then force the Fed to react to that situation, which will be bad, because at that point they will have to cut rates to probably 0, and that won't work because they have already lost this game and there's nothing they can do about it. So just realize I warned about this. Was coming. You could see it in the charts. You can go back and you can start to see, the charts will tell you what's coming. If you look at the charts, you can start to see these patterns form. You can start to actually see what's coming in the future, and you can then prepare for bad weather or good weather, depending on the situation. This is bad weather. When this one reinverts, let's say the 2-year finally normalizes and settles at a level of, let's say, between 5 and 6%. The 10-year would eclipse, move over the 2, and end up at, let's say, a 6 to 8% by the time it settles down. That would then change your whole dynamic of the loan structures that the banks have to deal with out here. This would cause a massive liquidity issue for especially the regional banks, which hold a lot of these commercial, residential, and auto loans. And then you would see a lot of disruption in the banks, cannibalization of the banks, where we have larger banks come in and have to buy them up because they're failing. So it's just the way it is, and this is what happens in these potential deep recessions, or potential, in this case, fairly deep depression that we're heading into, as you watch the Middle East break down and we watch fuels start to really move up, and they are. They're spiking at this very moment because they can't control the Red Sea over there, and the whole Middle East is breaking down. And we're watching Turkey getting ready to walk into the war also. So God bless. Have a great night, and find the open door. Find Jesus. God bless.